What happened in those final 7 words would be replayed over 90 million times, analyzed by body language experts, and become the most quoted courtroom moment in Judge Judy history. 7 words. After 8 minutes of complete silence. 8 minutes of a wealthy plaintiff weaving an elaborate story. 8 minutes of lies stacking on lies. And then 7 words that made it all collapse like a house of cards. James Martinez sat in the defendant's chair, a 52-year-old Army veteran, his posture military straight, his hands folded calmly on the table. He hadn't spoken since saying, "Yes, Your Honor," when asked if he understood the proceedings. For 8 minutes, he watched his accuser speak. He didn't interrupt, didn't object, didn't even shake his head. Just watched with that 1,000-yard stare that comes from 20 years of military service. Across from him sat Victoria Ashford, a real estate agent in a designer dress, diamonds catching the courtroom lights, her voice confident and emotional as she told her story of how James had defrauded her, threatened her, and destroyed her property. She had photos, she had text messages, she had witnesses who would back her story. She spoke for 8 solid minutes, barely pausing for breath. What Victoria didn't know was that James had learned patience in places where speaking at the wrong moment could get you killed. He'd learned to observe, to wait, to choose the perfect moment to act. And when Judge Judy finally turned to him and said, "Mr. Martinez, I'd like to hear your response," James spoke 7 words that exposed every single lie Victoria had told, 7 words that proved she'd committed perjury, 7 words that ended her entire case, 7 words that changed everything. Before I reveal the 7 words that destroyed her entire case after 8 minutes of lies, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from right now. And if you've ever seen someone dig themselves deeper with every word while the truth stayed silent, or if you respect veterans who choose their battles carefully, smash that subscribe button. What happens when James finally speaks is the most powerful moment of restraint and precision you'll ever see. Here's how a quiet Army veteran ended up being accused of fraud by a woman who thought his silence meant weakness. 6 months earlier, James had been looking for a small house to buy as an investment property. After 20 years in the Army and 2 deployments to Iraq, he'd saved carefully and was ready to purchase his first rental property, something to provide income and security for his retirement. Victoria Ashford was the listing agent for a small 2-bedroom house in a modest neighborhood. The asking price was $180,000. The house needed work, but James was handy and saw potential. During the showing, Victoria was professional and friendly. She mentioned the house had some minor cosmetic issues, but was structurally sound. She provided disclosure documents that James reviewed carefully. His military training had taught him to read everything before signing. James made an offer of $175,000. Victoria countered at $178,000. James agreed. They opened escrow. That's when things started going wrong. James hired an inspector as part of his due diligence. The inspector found significant problems: faulty wiring, a cracked foundation, mold in the walls, a roof that needed complete replacement. Problems that would cost $45,000 to fix. Problems that should have been disclosed. James went back through the disclosure documents. None of these issues were mentioned. He contacted Victoria and explained that he needed to either renegotiate the price to account for the repairs or cancel the purchase and get his $5,000 earnest money deposit back. Victoria's response was cold. "The property is sold as is. Your deposit is non-refundable. If you back out, I keep it." James showed her the inspection report. "These are material defects that weren't disclosed. Under state law, I have the right to cancel and receive my full deposit back." Victoria's voice turned sharp. "Are you threatening me? Because I have connections. I will make sure you never buy property in this state again." James stayed calm. "I'm not threatening anyone. I'm requesting my legal right to cancel based on undisclosed defects." "Good luck proving that," Victoria said. "It's your word against mine." She kept the $5,000 deposit. But worse, 2 weeks later, James received a lawsuit. Victoria was suing him for $25,000, claiming he'd harassed her, threatened her business, damaged the property during inspections, and caused her emotional distress that cost her other sales. The lawsuit was pure fiction. A slap suit designed to intimidate him into walking away. Victoria thought an Army veteran living on a fixed income wouldn't fight back. She thought he'd settle to avoid legal costs. She was wrong. James showed up to court with a simple folder. He didn't bring a lawyer. He didn't bring witnesses. He didn't bring elaborate presentations. Just a folder, his military bearing, and a strategy. Let her talk. Let her commit to every detail of her story under oath. And then speak only when necessary, because James had learned something in the military that Victoria had never learned in real estate. The person who talks the most isn't always the person who wins. Sometimes Silence is the most powerful weapon. Judge Judy reviewed the case file with her characteristic intensity. Victoria's lawsuit was professionally prepared, filled with accusations and supporting documentation. Mrs. Ashford, Judge Judy began, you're suing Mr. Martinez for $25,000. Tell me what happened. Victoria took a deep breath and launched into her story. Her voice carried emotion, hurt, betrayal, fear. Your Honor, Mr. Martinez approached me as a buyer for one of my listings. Everything seemed fine initially. But after we opened escrow, his behavior changed completely. He became aggressive, demanding. He hired an inspector who damaged walls and broke fixtures just to create evidence of problems that didn't exist. She pulled out photos showing damaged walls and broken electrical plates. When I tried to explain that the property was sold as clearly stated in our contract, he threatened me. He said he had military tactics to make me return his deposit. He said he knew how to eliminate targets who got in his way. Your Honor, I was terrified. Judge Judy's expression was unreadable. Did you report these threats to police? I was too frightened, but I documented everything. Text messages where he's clearly aggressive. Witness statements from my colleagues who heard him threatening my business. This wasn't a simple buyer's remorse situation. This was intimidation and harassment. Victoria presented text messages, printed out and highlighted. She presented statements from 2 other real estate agents claiming they'd witnessed James's aggressive behavior at Victoria's office. She spoke for 8 minutes straight, every detail carefully crafted, every accusation supported by some piece of documentation. Her story was elaborate, specific, and designed to paint James as a dangerous, unstable veteran who'd tried to bully her into returning money he wasn't owed. James sat completely still. His face showed no emotion. He didn't fidget, didn't look angry or defensive. Just watched Victoria with calm, patient eyes. Judge Judy glanced at James several times during Victoria's monologue, clearly trying to read him. But James gave nothing away. When Victoria finally finished, she sat back with satisfaction. She'd presented overwhelming evidence. She'd told a convincing story. She'd portrayed herself as a victim of a dangerous man. And that dangerous man had said nothing to defend himself. Judge Judy turned to James. Mr. Martinez, you've been very quiet. I'd like to hear your response to these accusations. Specifically, Ms. Ashford claims you threatened her with violence. Did you say you had military tactics to eliminate targets? The courtroom was silent. Everyone leaned forward. This was the moment. James looked directly at Judge Judy. His voice was calm, clear, and measured. The courtroom went absolutely before today. 7 words. I've never met her before today. Victoria's face froze. Her mouth opened slightly. The color drained from her cheeks. Judge Judy's eyebrow raised. I'm sorry, what? James's voice remained steady. I've never met Victoria Ashford, not at a property showing, not at her office, not anywhere. Every transaction was conducted through email and phone with her assistant, Jennifer Reyes. I've never been in the same room as Ms. Ashford until this courtroom. Judge Judy looked at Victoria. Ms. Ashford, you just testified for 8 minutes about in-person interactions with Mr. Martinez. Showings, office meetings, face-to-face threats. Are you now telling me those never happened? Victoria stammered. No. I mean, he was at the showing. He must have been. How else would he have seen the property? James calmly opened his folder. Your Honor, I have email correspondence showing that Jennifer Reyes conducted the showing. I never attended. I reviewed the property through a virtual tour and photos. Here's the email chain confirming that arrangement. He slid printed emails to Judge Judy, each one clearly showing correspondence between James and Jennifer Reyes, Victoria's assistant. Not a single email to or from Victoria herself. The inspection was scheduled by Jennifer. The offer was transmitted by Jennifer. The counteroffer came from Jennifer. Every communication about the escrow came from Jennifer. I spoke to Victoria once, on the phone, when I requested my deposit back. She told me to send my concerns in writing to Jennifer. Judge Judy examined the emails carefully. Her expression grew harder. James continued, the text messages she's presenting as threatening can't be from me. I don't have her phone number. I have Jennifer's number. If those texts exist, they're either fabricated or from someone else. Judge Judy looked at Victoria. Mrs. Ashford, show me these threatening text messages. What number did they come from? Victoria fumbled with her phone, her confidence completely shattered. I must have deleted them, but I have the printed versions, printed screenshots that conveniently don't show the sender's phone number, Judge Judy observed coldly. How convenient. James spoke again, his voice quiet but firm. Your Honor, I'd like to call a witness. Jennifer Reyes. She's here. A young woman stood from the courtroom gallery. She looked nervous but determined. Judge Judy gestured her forward. Miss Reyes, you worked as Ms. Ashford's assistant during this transaction? Yes, Your Honor. I was the only person who had direct contact with Mr. Martinez. I conducted the showing. I coordinated everything. Ms. Ashford never met him. Victoria's voice rose in desperation. Jennifer, what are you doing? We discussed you asking me to lie. Jennifer interrupted. You asked me to say I witnessed him threatening you at the office, but I refused. I won't commit perjury. Judge Judy's voice was ice. Mrs. Ashford, you just committed perjury in my courtroom. You testified under oath about in-person encounters that never happened. You submitted text messages as evidence that you can't authenticate. You brought witness statements about office confrontations that your own assistant says never occurred. Your case is dismissed. You will return Mr. Martinez's $5,000 deposit immediately. You will pay him $3,000 for his time and legal stress, and I'm referring this matter to the State Real Estate Commission and the District Attorney's Office for investigation of fraud and perjury. Victoria sat frozen, her elaborate story destroyed by 7 words and the truth she thought she could bury under lies. Judge Judy turned to James. Mr. Martinez, why did you wait? Why didn't you interrupt her story earlier? James's response was simple. In the military, you learn that people who lie eventually contradict themselves. I wanted to make sure she committed to every detail before I spoke. Once she testified under oath to events that never happened, the truth became simple. The clip exploded, 90 million views. 7 words became a cultural moment. Body language experts analyzed James's strategic silence. Law professors used it as a teaching example of perjury consequences. Victoria's real estate license was suspended pending investigation. Jennifer Reyes reported additional cases where Victoria had fabricated evidence. The state attorney general opened a broader investigation. James received his $5,000 deposit plus the $3,000 judgment. He used the money to help fund a veterans' legal aid clinic. One man's strategic silence, 7 perfectly timed words. Truth waiting for lies to fully commit. If this also gave you chills, hit that like button. Comment 7 words if strategic silence just won the day, scared for more truth over lies moments. Next, a veteran's military records reveal something the opposing lawyer didn't research. Patience defeats deception. Truth doesn't need many words.